Co-production Futures Inquiry is an effort to address the institutional barriers to doing co-produced and participatory research in UK higher education. We've deliberately taken an inquiry approach because we thought that that would be more powerful than just academic researchers on their own. So we've mobilised a critical mass of key leaders from across the higher education sector in the UK.
We've pulled together a panel of people in the sector who have influence in various different ways.
We wanted to take the time to get to know each other and to be in a kind of common intellectual and practical space.
And really building a basis on which to establish a platform for change across the higher education sector of quite potentially deep kinds.
We ran a national call for evidence and ideas, and the aim of this was to understand the size and scale of the problem and the kind of barriers to doing participatory and co-produced research in higher education, any kind of solutions that are being tried and tested. And we kind of situated the call for evidence around 4 key themes, so fair funding, metrics, negotiated ethics, and equitable partnerships. And those themes kind of really stood up to the evidence.
There's a default expectation that lived experience experts are part of research teams, and so the big question is, are our current systems and structures around research fit for purpose in this context? My experience and my team's experience doing this work very much speaks to the unseen, undervalued, relational, emotional, administrative labour involved in navigating complex systems that just aren't designed for co-productive work, but particularly ethical and sensitive co-productive work.
So if we're serious about co-production, it can't just be about valuing people's stories or saying, we're bringing people in or we're bringing one person who has often that burden of representation just as a seat at the table. It's really about reducing power imbalances and maximising autonomy, even when that challenges and kind of disrupts our plans.
We were all grappling with how to reconcile trying to do participatory research ethically with the institutional ethics processes that we needed to operate within. And all of us were really kind of struggling with the tensions between the two, the feeling of a square peg and a round hole.
And I think we're seeing a lot of the rhetoric around this not matching the reality of people's commitment to it, people saying the right things, but then actually people's experience of being part of this is not matching.
We need to be getting that kind of citizen voice in at the start and do that co-production from the beginning. So I'm really interested to kind of learn from those communities that maybe have been doing this for a little bit longer.
We have lots to learn around what it means to champion practice-led and non-academic forms of expertise.
We're all in agreement here that these are some of the barriers. We're all in agreement that we want change, but they're all quite ad hoc right now, the solutions. There's no joined up or sector-wide approach to how we fix the barriers.
How do we bring in lived experience? And it kind of, in some ways it sounds like the right question, but I guess I want to question that and say, what if it's the wrong question actually? What if instead we're thinking about how will we create the conditions for people with lived experience to have real power, to have real autonomy and real agency in the research that affects them?
We need to build a research culture that is inclusive, ethical, and genuinely responsive to the communities we serve. So while frameworks like the REF do recognize the impact, I think we still need deeper shifts in funding models, institutional incentives, and also infrastructure to embed this community engaged research.
We need to think about power relations both inside and outside the university.
How do we, in a complex higher education landscape, there's lots of multiple different demands, how do we ensure that this question about co-production really is at the forefront? How do we ensure that the inquiry has impact?
The things that came through really clearly for me were around the need to think more about ecosystems of change rather than very linear models of the relationship between knowledge and action. So in particular thinking about how we link people's values and their commitment to doing co-produced and participatory research with the kinds of incentives, metrics and evaluation systems that are used to assess them.
I think really guarding against us trying to educate people or telling them what they're doing wrong, but really thinking about how we mutually share common interests, common values, common goals in terms of making the system easier for people to do better participatory research, and then mutually thinking about how we transform both ourselves and our organisations.